you?
I am vengeance. I am the Spectre.
When Detective Jim Corrigan was killed so brutally by the gang members, nobody was expecting him to come back for revenge. But he did, and he came back as terrifying Spectre. While many may think that the Spectre is just a mortal soul who was given divine powers, that could not be further from the truth. So today in our video, we will look into Spectre and learn about who he is, what his powers are, and why he has the potential to be one of the strongest characters in the DC universe. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. Who is Spectre? Human or spirit? Now, when we hear the name Spectre, we think of Jim Corrigan, but he is actually not the Spectre. He is the host. Spectre is something else entirely. The Spectre we know originated way back when Jim Corrigan learned about it when he got a vision. So let's learn a bit about that. When the world began, there was something known as the Presence. The Presence is the one above all, basically the god of the DC universe. He was almighty and all-powerful, and all of his aspects had a name of their own. His wrath was known as Eclipso, his mercy was called Radiant, and his vengeance, you guessed it, was known as the Spectre. Now, because the Presence is actually like God, following how the events in Christianity went, the Presence created a place for himself and his devout followers, also known as Paradise. But as we know, not everyone enjoys a stable life with everything catered to them. So an angel known as Lucifer Morningstar decided that he wanted to be the one in charge of Paradise and get rid of the Presence from there. However, as the Presence was the most powerful, Lucifer and his team of angels did not stand a chance, and for all this disobedience, the Presence banished them from Paradise. Out of all the angels who joined hands with Lucifer Morningstar and got banished, not all of them felt righteous about their actions. One such fallen angel turned demon was Aztar. Aztar realized his mistakes, and he wanted to ask the Presence for forgiveness. When the demon showed up at the gates of the heaven, Archangel Michael showed up to take him in, and you can imagine how tense the situation was between these two. Aztar finally had an audience with the Presence, and a judgment was passed. Aztar was to become the vessel for God's wrath, and on doing so, all of his previous memories would be wiped away, along with his conscience, basically turning his body into a weapon at God's disposal. While Aztar accepted the punishment he was given, the thought of being wiped away completely definitely was not something he was expecting. So his dying wish before the wrath of God entered him and cleansed him completely was to have a bit of his conscience spared so that he could experience or at least watch the new person he had become. With that wisdom blown out into the cosmos, Aztar accepted his fate. Once the wrath of God combined with him, he became the Spectre Force. Aztar became the primary Spectre. In any story in history where we see revenge happening, this primal Spectre was the one who made it happen. His actions go far back, and one of the earliest incidents where we see this primal force at play was when Cain murdered his brother Abel. Primal Spectre was the one who marked Cain. This was the reason behind the long, drawn-out animosity between Cain and Spectre. This primal Spectre was also the one who punished Eclipso when it became evil. He stripped Eclipso of his ranks and locked his powers away in a black diamond known as the Heart of Darkness. The primal Spectre was also the one who destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, killed the firstborns in Egypt, and even fell the walls of Jericho. The wrath of God punished humans for centuries until Jesus of Nazareth was born. This was because Jesus was a sign of God's forgiveness, and obviously, God's wrath and God's forgiveness cannot walk together on earth at the same time. This led to the wrath of God being cast into this limbo, where it stayed until the death of Christ. Once Jesus had died, the wrath of God wanted to punish the mankind for the death of Christ. However, before he could do so, Michael, the archangel, showed up. He told the primal Spectre that by the decree of God, every aspect of God was bound to the human soul, and that obviously prevented the wrath of God from going all out on humanity. So the wrath of God was awaiting around for a human soul who was seeking vengeful justice. Over the years, there were several humans who bargained their souls for the power to exact revenge on people who had done them wrong. None of them ever knew the true history of the spirit. They simply knew that they were human souls who were gifted divine powers, and not that they were the host of the divine wrath or the Spectre Force. What is the source of his power? Why does he need a human host? When it comes to the source of his power, there's no doubt that the Spectre gets his powers from the Presence himself. The Presence's wrath was what made the Spectre Force. So, just as strong as God is, so is the Spectre Force. The powers he has are limitless, so to keep the divine wrath in check, it became sort of mandatory for him to be bound to a human host. Over the years, whenever there was someone who was done wrong and sought out vengeance, they were given a choice. Whether they would be willing to give up their soul if they got a chance to take the revenge on the people who had caused them so much pain. When they agreed, the Spectre Force was able to use their body as a host. One of the first hosts that Spectre Force got that we know of was Chakra, this Indian man whose entire family was slain by this witch known as Beltana. Once he became the first true Spectre, he used his powers to get his revenge on the person who had hurt him and his family. However, he was seduced by a demon, which led to him becoming corrupt and using the Spectre Force for wrongdoing. So soon enough, Chakra was stripped of the powers he had and was turned into Asmodeus by joining him with the demon who had seduced him. From this above-mentioned incident, we can clearly see that the powers that the Spectre Force gives an individual are huge, and understandably, when someone who has done so wrong by other people gets such a huge amount of power, they may stray from the path of justice. This psychological and moral compass that the host of the divine wrath have played a key role in how his power is being used. With godlike abilities, unless the host is a good man, huge chaos would ensue wherever the Spectre went. How does his size alteration work? Over the years, we have seen several characters in the DC universe who can easily grow in size. Well, this is a power in their arsenal. They all have a limit to their growth spurt. However, when it comes to Spectre, there is not one. See, the Spectre needs a human host to do his magic. Once he has the human host, things are pretty much good to go. Using his magical abilities, the Spectre can grow to a humongous height without any issues. Not only that, his magic also allows him to create other terrifying things, such as scaring his adversaries with a booming voice, almost reminiscent of God himself, or maybe even scaring them off with a monstrous appearance. The size alteration power of his comes in really handy when the Spectre wants to intimidate his opponent. He is not only capable of altering the size of his body, but he can also change the shape of his body as well. We see him turn his hands into guns or machine guns several times, and one time, even a mallet. What is the limit of his power? The Spectre is a part of God, which was later turned into a weapon of God in a way if you think about it. Now, obviously, since he is part of God, he will not have powers that are almost equal to those of God, but his powers come very close to God's. The Spectre Force is one of the oldest forces present on Earth, and there is nothing happening on Earth that the Spectre Force does not know about. Yes, that means the Spectre knows about the events that have happened due to distortion and disruptions in the time stream as well. As a servant of God, his powers are effectively limitless. If the Spectre can imagine something, he can definitely make it happen. This is also the reason why having a human host is necessary for the Spectre, as the vast power is guided by the human in the right direction to a degree. Now, even though the powers that the Spectre has are limitless, that does not mean that the Spectre does not get punished. Every time the Spectre made mistakes, he was punished by the Presence himself, which even resulted in him getting the majority of his powers stripped away from him as punishment. Despite getting the majority of his powers stripped away from him, the Spectre Force remained one of the strongest spirits to ever roam the Earth. The Spectre can also call upon the Logos. The Logos is the inner aspect that the Spectre can use to reach out to the Presence himself if there is any need. Can he easily beat Superman? In the whole DC universe, there is no doubt that Superman would be one of the characters who are extremely strong. Our resident Kryptonian has succeeded in doing a lot of things over the years, and with how the Kryptonian physiology works, there is no way that Superman would not be able to win in a battle, especially if it is on Earth. He always gets powered up whenever he is in the yellow sunlight, and let's not forget, he can always rest up in the sun to become a more powerful version of himself, so he is definitely a strong character, no doubt. But there's one thing that he is not immune to, and that is anything that is magical abilities. Spectre, who is the divine wrath of God, is an extremely powerful character, and there are so many things that he can do that Superman cannot even fathom. Theoretically speaking, Spectre would definitely win the fight if the two of them had a face-off because of his magical and supernatural abilities. As we see in the DC Comics Presents issue 29, Superman actually faces off against Spectre. In this issue, Supergirl, Superman's cousin, is rendered unconscious, and in order to save her, Superman travels at a high speed into space to catch up to Supergirl's unconscious floating body. He had almost gotten to her when suddenly, someone came in the middle and blocked his path. As he was moving at quite a high speed, the sudden barrier in his pathway led to Superman losing his balance and falling to the nearest planet. There he saw that the one who had stopped him was none other than Spectre. Superman was quite aggravated and tried to move Spectre away, and every time he punched Spectre, either his hand went through him or Spectre did not even move in the slightest. Superman even tried to outrun Spectre, but he was unable to do so. At one point, Spectre grew humongous in size and held Superman between two of his fingers to make Superman understand why Spectre had stopped him. It turns out that the high-speed journey that Superman had embarked on had broken several barriers, and he was venturing into the realms governed by the Presence himself. That is why Spectre was told to go and stop Superman. When Superman realized his mistake, he apologized and asked Spectre for help to recover Supergirl, and before Superman had finished his statement, the Supergirl was in his hands. Although the fight was quite small, it was evidently clear that to Spectre, Superman and his powers were not at all something that he could not handle, crowning him the winner of this fight. Superman himself accepts that he is not strong enough for Spectre in the fight. Can he sense the blood of innocence? The main reason why the divine wrath exists in the first place is for the sake of the innocent people. There has been a lot of injustice amongst mankind, and the divine wrath's only goal is to give justice to the people who are wronged. So in order to do that, Spectre has the unique ability that allows him to smell the innocent blood that has been spilt. Not only that, but Spectre is also able to smell the blood of the host as well. This enhanced sense of smell has helped him track the people at fault down. So just like a shark, whenever a drop of innocent blood is spilt, Spectre shows up to avenge them. Can he travel through dimensions? Surprisingly, Spectre, along with all the powers that we have mentioned, also has the ability to go through dimensions. Spectre can go to purgatory with ease whenever he wants. If he has access to a fresh corpse, then he can go to the realm of the recently deceased. On top of that, Spectre is the ruler of his own realm, where he is the most powerful. He can take his adversaries into his realm and do whatever he wants to do with them. In the Superman fight that we mentioned, at one point, Superman was taken to Spectre's own realm, where Spectre forced him to relieve the destruction of his planet Krypton, the death of his adopted father, and finally when Superman had to fight with his evil self. Superman was able to understand what Spectre wanted him to realize in the first place. All of these dimensional travels are done by Spectre at a moment's notice, and whenever he's taking someone with him, the experience is usually quite disorienting for the person with him. Spectre's profound power to alter the very fabric of existence. Now, when you see Spectre's function, one might think that he has telekinesis because he is more than capable of doing things without touching anyone at all. However, that is not quite accurate as we look more into his powers. We quickly learn that the power that he has is not telekinesis, but matter manipulation. Anything that exists around him, if he so wishes, Spectre can change them on his whim. We have seen this several times at play. One time he turned a whole group of criminals into wrath. We have seen him turn rocks into weapons at a second's notice. He is able to do all of these things because of the manipulation of matter. This power makes Spectre quite the opponent to go against, especially for vigilantes, because even before they can do something, Spectre will dispose of them in a second. Does he feel pain? Now, over the years, we have seen Spectre do quite a few scary things, and he has been through far scarier things, but all of his adventures begs one question. Does he feel pain? The answer is sort of yes and no. Okay, so when we see him fight Superman, Superman's punch does not even hurt him. This is because Spectre cannot be hurt unless he allows it. Now, the fight between him and Superman took place in outer space. There, he was in his typical spirit form. However, if the Spectre were to possess something, as possession is one of his abilities, and that thing got damaged or hurt, he would feel it too. This is because when he is possessing something or someone in a way, he is allowing himself to be hurt, and that's where the pain comes in. So in a physical form, animate or inanimate object, he will feel pain. Otherwise, he will not. Can he manipulate time? Thanks to the presence, Spectre has quite a set of powers that are extremely cool. One such power is his ability to warp through time. Spectre knows about the alternate timelines and all the events that have caused the time disruptions. Spectre has the ability to travel through the timelines, and as he knows about the consequences, he usually does not use this power. Only when he knows that something bad might happen and there is no other way for him to stop the event from happening, he travels through the timelines. On top of that, whenever Spectre feels like he needs to use a set of powers to win the fight he's in, he can warp reality to make sure he has that power. Like he can make someone's inner loneliness swallow them whole completely, which is so bizarre but so cool at the same time. With such a handy-dandy power, it is quite disappointing that for the sake of plots, writers often make Spectre lose fights. Can Spectre look into the heart and souls of others? One of the coolest powers that Spectre has at his disposal is telepathy. Instead of having the basic ability to read minds and look into people's minds, what Spectre can do is a little different. He can sense people's intentions, especially when they plan to carry out those intentions. He can enter the minds of his targets and fight in the terrain of the person's mind, which is made up of dreams and thoughts. If Spectre is victorious in the duel, he ends up with more information about the targets and their intentions. As he goes inside someone's mind and learns about their dreams and thoughts and everything, Spectre also gets the opportunity to understand the person's heart and soul and judge them in his own way. If they are a good person, no harm comes their way. However, if they are bad people, Spectre creates illusions that can physically hurt them, which may or may not be based on their deepest, darkest fears. Marvelous verdict. Since the first introduction in 1940 in the 52nd issue of More Fun Comics, Spectre has been quite an interesting character. He has a very dark past, and given the divine nature of his powers, it is entertaining to see all the abilities that he has, along with the new abilities that he creates for himself whenever he is backed into a corner. I don't know about you, but Spectre seems like the more religious version of Ghost Rider, which definitely has its own charm. As a fan of this comic character, I would like to see Spectre win a few more battles in the future, because it would be really nice to see his limitless powers at play. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave and like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thank you, everyone.